Okay, and this is for first week August 2021. And so first of all we'll cover means topic. Okay, means topic, then after that we'll cover prelims topic. So in our main topic, friends, first of all I will cover the phenomenon. Okay, phenomenon of cloud burst. So let's start our discussion with the first topic. Okay, and the first topic is the phenomenon of cloud burst. Okay, because this is in frequent use, so you'll have to keep in the mind. So let's understand what is the context and the topic. Okay, topic is related to geography. So what is the context? So this year monsoon season, okay, has been a spat of cloud burst over the western Himalaya and the west coast, revealing the deadly, unpredictable phase of monsoon rain. Unpredictable phase of monsoon rain. So you will have to keep in the mind unpredictable. Okay, phase of monsoon rain. Unpredictable phase of monsoon rain. Okay, unpredictable phase of monsoon rain. So what is cloud burst? Anyone? Do you know about the cloud burst? What is the meaning of cloud burst? Anyone?
Sir, excess amount of rain in a short period of time.
Okay. Anyone else? What is the meaning of cloud burst?
Sir, heavy
Okay.
rainfall.
No problem. Yes. Go ahead. Subralin.
Yes, sir.
Yes, tell me.
Sir, very heavy rainfall.
Okay. Yeah. So let's understand what is the meaning of cloud burst. So cloud burst are short duration. Please keep in the mind. Okay, short duration. Okay, what short duration? Okay, and intense rainfall events over a small area. So basically, cloud burst is related to intense rainfall in a small area. Okay, in a small area and in during a short duration. So please keep in the mind. And friends, according to India Meteorological Department, that means the IMD, according to India Meteorological Department, it is a weather phenomenon. Okay, it is a weather phenomenon with unexpected precipitation exceeding 100 millimeter per hour over a geographical region of approximately 20 to 30 square kilometer. 20 to 30 square kilometer. So according to IMD, what is this? It is a weather phenomenon. Okay, weather phenomenon with unexpected precipitation and exceeding 100 millimeter per hour over a geographical region of approximately 20 to 30 square kilometer. So friends, area prone to cloud burst. Which area? Okay. So cloud burst do occur at plains. Please keep in the mind. Do occur at plains. And however, mountainous region are more prone. Okay. However, mountainous region are more prone to cloud burst due to topography or due to structure. Okay, and they also occur in desert and in interior region of continental landmass. Okay, also in desert, please keep in the mind, and in continental landmass. Okay, so how it occurs? So friends, generally cloud bursts are associated with thunderstorms. Okay, cloud bursts are generally associated with thunderstorms and the air currents, okay, rushing upwards in rain stream, also you can say rain storm, hold up a large amount of water. So generally cloud bursts are associated with thunderstorm. Okay, associated with thunder storm. Okay, please keep in the mind thunder storm. Okay, and the air currents rushing upward in a rainstorm hold up a large amount of water, and air current is air moving. Okay, air current is a air moving from an area of high pressure to an area of low pressure. Okay, what is the meaning of low pressure and what is the meaning of high pressure? Can you tell me which area, okay, basically related to high pressure and which area basically related to low pressure? Anyone? Do you have any idea? Low pressure means high temperature or low temperature?
Sir, high temperature.
High temperature.
Okay, very good, very good. Yes, low. First of all, you will have to keep in the mind low. Okay, pressure means high temperature, and high pressure means low temperature. High pressure means low temperature. Please keep in the mind. Okay, low pressure is related to. Okay, low pressure is related to high temperature, and high pressure is related to low temperature. So basically, how air moves? So you'll have to keep in the mind. Okay, so air moves low. Okay, you can say ki low pressure to high pressure, also from an area of high pressure to an area of low pressure. And if these currents suddenly, okay, if these currents suddenly cease, the entire amount of water descends onto a small area, okay, with catastrophic force of all a sudden and causes mass destruction. And this is due to rapid, okay, condensation of the clouds. This is due to rapid condensation of cloud. Please keep in the mind rapid, okay, condensation of cloud, rapid condensation of cloud. So friend, they are called burst. Okay, probably because it was believed earlier that clouds were solid masses full of water. Okay, so these violent storms were attributed to their bursting. Okay, you know Himalayan area. Okay, also you can say Himalay's vulnerability to natural disasters. So you can see here, just a minute. Yes, so Himalayan vulnerability to natural disaster. So the geography of place makes it vulnerable to cloud burst. Okay, why? Because, or also you can say which are okay, convective phenomenon producing sudden, okay, high intensity rainfall over a small area, Why? Due to its topography, geology, okay, propensity for tectonic activity, and ecological fragility. And the Himalayan region becomes prone to rapidly changing weather at micro levels. Okay, there's a example related to, okay, Gangotri floods. So you'll have to keep in the mind. Okay. Then friends, let's discuss how anthropogenic factors are increasing the events. Okay, how? Also, first of all, friends, let's understand how cloud burst is different from rainfall. Let's understand how. Okay, so first of all, a cloud burst is different from rain only in the amount of water, amount of water, and that pours down on the earth. And the IMD, that means the India Meteorological Department's levels rainfall over 100 millimeter per hour. Okay, 100 millimeter per hour as cloud burst. So please keep in the mind. And in simpler terms, friends, if 10 centimeters rainfall is received at a station in 1 hour, and the rain event is termed as cloud burst. So basically, okay, 10 centimeters. Basically, it is related to 10 centimeters. Or we can say if 10 centimeters rainfall is received at a station in 1 hour, the rain event is termed as cloud burst. And in usually small areas, so anywhere between 20 to 80 square kilometer, And also you can say due to cloud burst, 20 to 80 square kilometers are affected. So now let's understand how anthropogenic factors are increasing the events. Okay, how anthropogenic, that means man-made. Anthropogenic causes. Okay, so in a recent years, friends, the following anthropogenic factors have been implicated in extreme weather events in the Himalayas. So first is population. First is population. Okay, first is population. Second, deforestation. Deforestation. Third, land use change. Land use change. Okay, then next, emission due to urbanization. Okay, raising of emission. Emission due to urbanization. Okay, and friends, how climate change is adding to the issue. Let's understand how climate change is adding to the issue. So as per the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, glaciers in the Himalayas are receding faster than in any other mountain range. Okay, so that means glacier is melting on the high basis. Okay, and glacial lakes formed by melting glacier are constrained by ice dams. And since the Indian summer monsoon coincide with the melting of glacier, and ice dams are weakened by the additional stress of the monsoon and are prone to bursting. And a flash flood in Kargil in May 2016 was attributed to this. And as temperature increase, the atmosphere can hold more and more moisture, and this moisture comes down as a short, very intense rainfall for a short duration, probably half an hour or 1 hour, resulting in flash floods in the mountainous area and urban floods in the cities. Okay, basically, for example, do you know about the topography of hilly area? Okay, this type of hilly area. So there will be air condensation. Okay, so air condensation, and it will meet here. Okay, it will meet here. So basically 20 to 80 square kilometer area will be affected by cloud burst. So we have discussed the causes, we have discussed the climate change. Okay, we have discussed the meaning of cloud burst. So do you have any doubt, or is it clear? Please tell me. Yes, in an anthropogenic factor, can we take improper drainage system? Yes, of course, Nirmale, we can take. Okay, because our water harvesting system, and also drainage system is not so good. So we can take.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is it clear, or do you have any doubt, anyone? Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now I'm going to discuss the next topic, why the US, that means United States of America, had changed its mind on Nord Stream 2 pipelines. Okay, Nord Stream 2 pipelines. This is related to international relation. Okay, so what is the context, friend? So in the latest development, the United States gave its approval for the completion of Nord 2 pipeline, and it is a major new gas pipeline project between Russia and Germany. Okay, Russia and Germany. Okay, so what is the background? So the US, which had previously imposed sanctions to prevent the completion of major new gas pipelines between Russia and Germany, and now the president of US, who is the president? Joe Biden. Okay, so Joe Biden has decided not to kill the energy system with sanction. And it has instead gone with the softer option of threatening Russia with consequences. Should it use the pipeline to harm Ukraine or other countries in Eastern Europe? Other countries in you can say in Eastern Europe. And the joint statement of US and Germany states that united in their determination to hold Russia to account for its aggression and malign activities by imposing cost via sanction and other tools So this is the background. So what is the analysis portion of the topics? So first of all, friends, we should understand what is Nord Stream 2 pipeline project. Let's understand. So Nord 2 is an underwater twin pipeline that would transport natural gas from Russia directly to Germany. Basically, Nord Stream 2 pipeline is between Russia and Germany, and at a length of 1,230 kilometers. It is follow the route of the existing Nord Stream twin pipeline underneath Baltic Sea. And friends, it will carry 55 billion cubic meter of gas per year. 55 billion cubic meter of gas per year. And the pipeline crosses into the exclusive economic zones of 5 countries. So which country? First, Russia. Second, Germany. Third, Denmark. Fourth, Finland. And fifth, Sweden. Basically, Nord 2 pipeline project crosses into the exclusive economic zone of 5 countries: Russia, Germany, Denmark, Finland, and Sweden. And it will transport natural gas from Russia directly to Germany. And what is natural gas? So natural gas is a lower carbon fuel that can replace other fossil fuel in the energy mix and deliver a reliable output to complement intermittent renewable energy. So this is all about Nord 2 pipeline project. So now please keep in the mind quick fact of the project. So Nord 2 is being built by Nord Stream 2 AG. Consortium incorporated in you can say Switzerland, and Moscow-based state-owned Gazprom is the project's sole shareholder. Gazprom. So how will it be done? That means what will be the process? So let's understand the process. So first of all, for gas source, so the gas that the pipeline is to carry lie in northern Russia, Yamal Peninsula, and which holds nearly 5 trillion cubic meter of gas reserve. Then what will be the extraction and transportation? So once extracted, the gas is to be transported to coastal Russia. And friend, there it is to pass through a compressor station, a facility that raises the pressure of the fuel and then be fed into the pipeline. So what will be the flow? So after entering into the Gulf of Finland, the pipeline is to re-emerge on land in northwestern Germany near Greifswald. And Russia, Germany, Finland, Denmark, and Sweden have granted all the permits necessary for construction of the planned pipeline within their jurisdiction. So what is the original project, friend? So original Nord Stream pipeline with an annual capacity of 55 billion cubic meter was finished in late 2012. And the pipeline system total capacity is set to double to 10 billion cubic meter following Nord Stream 2 completion. So what is the current status of the project? That means Nord 2 Stream pipeline project. So the pipeline falls in German and Danish territory, and all but 150 kilometers pipes for the project have already been laid. So what is the facts about Russia energy reserve? Let's discuss. Okay, what is the facts about Russia energy reserve? So Russia has the largest known natural gas reserve of any state on earth. So that means कि Russia has largest gas reserve. Okay, Russia has largest gas reserve. Just a minute. Yeah. So friends, I told you that Russia has the largest known natural gas reserve, okay, gas reserves of any state on earth. And this is the 32% of world proven natural gas reserves, mainly owned and operated by Russian monopoly, okay, Gazprom, which produce 94% of Russian natural gas production. So basically, Russia has 32% of, okay, you can say natural gas of the world. So please keep in the mind. So which also you can say what is the name of the gas field in Russia? That is the largest natural gas field in Russia. So what is this? So let's discuss one by one. There is Urungay. Okay, please keep in the mind. I'm going to write. Okay, Urungay. Okay, field. Urungay field. No need to know detail. Okay, so then located in the north, okay, northern west Siberia basin. Okay, then second is Yamburg field. Okay, Yamburg field. Okay, then third is okay Bova Kobo field. Bova Kobo field. Bovanen Kobo field. Okay, then Satokam. Okay, Satokam field. Okay, then there is Japo. Okay, Linoye field. Japol. Okay, Japol Yard Noye. Okay, so basically these are the you can say natural gas field in Russia. So what is the significance of the Nord 2 project? So basically friends, the Germany secure a relatively low cost supply of gas amid falling European production. Okay, so please keep in the mind falling European production. And it is also part of Gazprom's decade-long efforts to diversify its export option to Europe as a region moves away from nuclear and coal. So what is the reason behind the US earlier stance? So let's understand the reason behind the US earlier stance. So more power to Russia. So friends, fear that the Baltic pipeline would give Russia too much power over European gas, okay, supplies, and it will lead, okay, to handing of a wider market and geopolitical power at a politically, okay, precarious time by Russia. The European Union, okay, dependency on Russia, European Union dependency on Russia. So the Nord 2 project would increase Europe's dependence on Russia for natural gas. And then also you can say thus boldening its okay President Vladimir Putin. Okay, so please keep in the mind. Our friends, currently European Union countries already rely on Russia for 40% of their gas need. So basically European Union depends on Russia. So basically 40% in natural gas from Russia. So European Union country already rely on Russia for 40% of their gas needs. And the European Union domestic gas production in rapid decline, and to meet demand, the European Union needs reliable, affordable, and sustainable new gas supplies. New gas supplies. So why Ukraine is opposing the project? Why Ukraine is opposing the project? Let's understand. Elimination of middleman nation. Elimination of middleman nation. So there is an existing land pipelines between Russia and Europe that runs through Ukraine, and which feels that once Nord Stream 2 is completed, Russia could bypass the Ukraine pipeline and deprive the country of lucrative transit fees of around $3 billion per year. $3 billion per year. Then nation isolation. So by passing, please keep in the mind, by passing the new, also you can keep by passing Ukraine with the new pipeline will isolate the nation and make it weak. Make it weak. So why USA change its mind now? So we should understand, friend, why America change their minds. So the America Germany deal lays out that if Russia attempts to use energy as a weapon or commit further aggressive act against Ukraine, Germany will take steps on its down and push for the action at the European Union, including sanction to limit Russian export capabilities to Europe in energy sector. So what will be the conclusion? So getting the go ahead for the pipeline's completion is of course it's a good news for Russia. It will not only increase Europe's dependence on Moscow, but will also make Germany and their Western European countries economically stronger, and eventually in turn it will boost their ability to promote democratic values. So we have discussed about the Nord Stream 2 pipelines project. So do you have any doubt or is it clear? Please tell me. Any doubt?
Sir, that is exclusive economic zone.
Sorry, I did not get you. Please.
Sir, exclusive economic zone.
Just a minute. Maybe there is technical problem in audio. Sucharita, can you type your question? Okay, what is exclusive economic zone? Okay, very good. Okay, so basically this is related to geography topic. Okay, exclusive economic zone. So please keep in the economic zone, basically related to geographic topics, and it is there's three things. Do you know these three things? So first is 12 nautical miles. 12 nautical miles from the coast. So basically we can say United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or that basically UNCLOS 1982, and also known as Law of the sea divides marine areas into 5 main zones. Okay, into 5 main zones. So first, internal waters, then second, territorial sea, then third, okay, contiguous zone, fourth, exclusive economic zone, and the fifth, high sea. Okay, high sea. So basically, 12 nautical miles, it is related to territorial sea. Okay, territorial sea. Then 12 nautical miles, basically it is related to contiguous, okay, zone, and 200 nautical miles is related to exclusive economic zone. Exclusive economic zone. So basically, each coastal, okay, state may claim an exclusive economic zone beyond and adjacent to its territorial sea that extend, okay, that extends seaward up to 200 nautical miles from its baseline, that is from its coast. And within, okay, its exclusive economic zone, a coastal state has sovereign rights for the purpose of exploring, exploiting, conserving, and managing natural resources, whether living or non-living, okay, of the seabed and subsoil. Then also you can say a coastal state, okay, coastal state has right to carry out activities like the production of energy from the water, currents, and wind. Okay, basically it is related to the rights in the sea. It is related to the rights in the sea. So is it clear, Sucharita?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So anyone, do you have any doubt? Please, if you have doubt, okay, feel free to ask. Okay, so now I'm going to discuss a new topic. So new topic is manual scan, okay, scavenging in India, a system failure, a system failure. So basically this is related to governance and social justice. Okay, so recently central government claims no deaths due to manual scavenging and instead calls, okay, them deaths due to hazardous cleaning of septic tanks and sewer. Okay, septic tanks and sewer. So what is manual? Okay, scavenging. So let's discuss. So manual evacuation refers to the process of removing human and animal waste from dry toilets and transporting it for disposal. Transporting it for disposal. Please keep in the mind. So it was officially banned by the Anti-Manual Scavenging Act in 1993. Okay, Act 1993. So it is banned. Okay, manual scavenging is banned in India as degrading practice. And unfortunately, the snatching by hands is still going on. And according to socio-economic caste census 2011, that means socio-economic caste census 2011, okay, socio-economic caste census 2011, 1.8 million families have joined the scam to earn a living. And not only does it violate basic human rights to life, but it also poses a serious threat to human health, serious threat to human health. So what is manual scavenging and related information? So let's discuss. So manual skipping is the practice of hand washing, carrying, disposing, or handling in any way human excrement from dry toilets and sewage pipes. And despite blocking it 28 years ago by law, technological advances are increasing sensitivity to human rights, and manual abuse continues in India. And the socio-economic and caste census released in 2015 estimates that there are an estimated 80 million families in rural area, okay, which is related to manual scavenging. Okay, scavenging. And a government survey identifies 12,226 fraudulent employees in 12 districts. Many septic tanks are hand delivered in Indian cities. And statistics shows that 80% of Indian sanitation workers die before they turn 30 and after contracting various infectious disease. And there are 8,000 urban areas and 6 lakhs villages with more accident in the cities, and large parts do not have sewage plants. Okay, large parts do not have sewage plants. So what is the recent development? Let's understand the recent development. Okay, recent development. Recent developments in manual scavenging. So the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment will amend the law for making machine cleaning mandatory, and whereas the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs has launched the Safai Mitra Suraksha Challenge. Safai Mitra Suraksha Challenge. So please keep in the mind, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Okay. What will amend the law for making machine cleaning mandatory for machine cleaning. Okay. For machine cleaning. Machine cleaning, okay, mandatory. And whereas the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Ministry of Housing and Urban, okay, Affairs, please keep in mind, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs has launched the Safai Mitra Suraksha Challenge. Safai Mitra Suraksha Challenge. Okay, Safai Mitra Suraksha Challenge. An amendment act introduced of the prohibition of employment as manual scavenger and their rehabilitation bill 2020 as a part of the national action plan for the Department of Justice and Empowerment. So what is the aim? So aim of this act, okay, or the amendment, the plan aims to make the modern sewage, okay, system more efficient and less fuel efficient, and the establishment of a sewerage system and sewage treatment system with transport tanks, transport and treatment of sewage treatment, to equip municipalities and establish clean response units with support lines. With response units with support lines. And friends, the bill, okay, so please keep in the mind, the bill makes the following important changes. So what changes? So now I'm going to tell you, okay, so please keep in the mind, the bill, okay, will make the following important changes. So first, mechanical cleaning, okay, mechanical cleaning, okay. So the bill proposes to completely clean sewage system and provide better occupational safety and compensation in the event of an accident. Then penalty. So the bill talks about penalty. Okay, penalty. So the bill proposes to make the law prohibiting the seizure of hands more severe by increasing the time of detention and fines, and currently engaging any person for the purpose of hazardous cleaning of sewer pipes and sewage tanks by any person or agency is punishable by imprisonment for up to 5 years or fine up to 5 lakh or both. Then the bill talks about the funds. So the funds will be given directly. Okay, the funds will be given directly. The funds will be given directly to sanitation workers and not to municipalities or contractors to purchase equipment. Okay, so please keep in the mind. So friend, what is Safai Mitra Suraksha Challenge? Let's discuss. So Safai Mitra Suraksha Challenge, basically what is this? So the challenge was presented among 243 major cities on World Toilet Day, which is celebrated on 19 November, okay, every year. So what is the purpose of Safai Mitra Suraksha Challenge? So purpose is to prevent dangerous cleaning of sewage pipes and swimming pools and to promote mechanical cleaning. And the government introduced the challenge for all provinces to install sewage treatment plants by April 2021. And if anyone needs to go to the CWO in the event of an avoidable emergency, proper tanks and oxygen tanks will be available. So what will be the eligibility? So capitals of the state, local urban bodies, and smart cities will be able to participate. So what will be the price? So city will be rewarded or awarded in less than 3 categories with a population of more than 10 lakhs, than 3 to 10 lakhs, and up to 3 lakhs with a total prize pool 52 crores will be awarded to the winning cities in all categories. So we have discussed about Safai Mitra Suraksha Challenge. So what is the region of manual scavenging? So let's discuss. So first, caste-based staff segregation. So please keep in the mind. So caste-based staff segregation. So used scavenger from caste groups are usually demoted to the lower class and are assigned to the livelihoods that are considered to be deplorable or deemed too low by the upper class groups. Then law enforcement. Second is law enforcement. So the first anti-fraud law was passed in 1993. And no one has ever been convicted under this act. No one. And in 2013, manual scavenger and their revision act were passed, which repeated the provision of the 1993 act. And charges are made visible and undetectable. And these provisions are not effective. And only when a fatal case arises, laws are enacted and resolved mainly by compensation negotiated with no action against the offender. No action against the offender. And friends, then the next reason is unemployment. What? Unemployment. So unemployment rate high in India. Unemployment rate in India are 7%. 7% according to data released by the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy. And the availability of cheap jobs promotes handicrafts as a profession in India. And due to the lack of jobs, handicraftsmen go to this lowly job to earn a living. So basically unemployment is the major reason. Then lack of water toilets and the lack of water toilets. So the main toilets used in urban areas are dry toilets, which are the main causes of hand damage. And in India, for example, there are 26 million dirty toilets. And in addition, in rural area, there are no established strategy for converting dry toilets. So please keep in the mind. Do you know manual scavenging is a failure of a state? How it is a state failure? Let's discuss one by one. So first, persistence in various provinces. So recent examples from communities involved in genocide in the province of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, and Uttar Pradesh underscore the government's failure to eradicate genocide and eradicate deeply entrenched ideology and practices that still bind members of affected communities. So basically, manual scavenging is in practice. So you will have to keep in the mind in practice in various states: Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh. Then there is law enforcement. So India's constitution, also you can say India's constitution prohibits the practice of non-compliance, and the Bill of Rights 1955 prohibits forcing anyone to use hand scratching, and the employment of manual scavenger and construction of dry latrine Prohibition Act 1993 declared that the employment of hand guards and the construction of dry toilets would be punishable by fines and imprisonment. And yet it is persistence reflects the failure of the law and the country. Failure of the law of the country, failure of the law, a failure of the government, failure of the state. Then there is also various news related to deaths of Safai Kamchari. So friends, Safai Kamchari Andolan reported 1,269 people killed in the 2014-16 genocide, and reports of deaths of workers involved in cleaning and repairing pits in the mines during the Swachh Bharat period show the state's failures to eradicate the practice. And recently, 3 people were killed in Bangalore and Uddalore while working in underground mines, and inhaling toxic gases was a major cause. Then friends, what is the key recommendation of National Human Rights Commission? So let's discuss what is the key recommendation of National Human Rights Commission for manual scavenging. So broaden the definition of manual scavenging. Broaden the definition of manual scavenging to cover types of hazardous cleaning or enact a new law for it. And a panel section may be put in law to prevent the discrimination and harassment faced by the children of manual scavenger and women manual scavenger. And friends, the manual scavenger rehabilitation process can be linked to program that that may soon start to benefit, such as Manrega, and visit to see how they and their families are doing. That friends, what is the provision for compensation related to, you can say, key recommendation for compensation from NHRC? Let's discuss. So compensation, and the amount of compensation paid as one-time financial assistance for renewal of equipment suppliers can be added to 40,000 to Rs 1 lakh. 40,000 to Rs 1 lakh. And the nodal authority or department, that will bear the cost of that compensation can also be clearly stated. Clearly stated. And friends, be sure to remove the role of intermediaries. Be sure to remove the role of intermediaries by making arrangements such as direct transfer of benefits or in collaboration with non-governmental organization. Then friends, the National Crime Research Bureau, so please keep in the mind. Also you can say the National Crime Research Bureau to monitor sewage and details shown in its report. Then strict measures against local authorities. Strict measures against local authorities hiring people to work as hand guards, app and free complaint registration number. Then Union Territory may set up a national bank. So that each state can take the responsibility of extending the loan to manual scavenger, and they sponsor up to Rs 10 lakhs to do business. And any individual or group insurance must be provided to manual scavenger, and the advance payment will be paid by the local bodies concerned. And the National Safai Kamchari Finance and Development Corporation can provide financial assistance to hand guards to help them get started in the field of sanitation and training for them. So what is the government initiative? We have discussed key recommendation of NHRC for manual scavenging. Now let's discuss the government initiative in this regard, that is manual scavenging. What is the government initiative? So basically friends, the Prohibition of Employment as Manual Scavenger and their Rehabilitation Act 2013 prohibits the construction or maintenance of unhygienic toilets and the hiring of any person by hand cleaning or hazardous cleaning of sewer pipes and swimming pools. And it also provides measures to rehabilitate people identified by the municipality as service provider. And friends, in 2014, Supreme Court ordered the government to identify all those who died in the wild okay, since 1993, and to provide 10 lakhs each as compensation for their families. And then in 1993, Government of India, okay, introduced the manual scavenger and the construction of dry latrine prohibition act, and it prohibiting the hiring of hand operated scavenger to clean dry toilets and the construction of flush toilets. And in 1989, the Prevention of Atrocities Act, okay, become an integrated security guard for sanitation worker, and more than 90% of the people employed as handicraftsmen belong to organized caste. And this was an important sign of the liberation, okay, of artisans from selected traditional practices. Then friends, Article 21, okay, and Article 21 of the Constitution guarantee the right to life and personal liberty. Right to life and personal liberty. Right to life and personal liberties. Okay, right to life and personal liberties. And right to life and also with dignity. Okay. Then Swachhta Abhiyan app. And Swachhta Abhiyan app has been developed to identify and geotag the data of insanitary latrines and manual scavenger, so that the insanitary latrines can be replaced with sanitary latrines, and rehabilitate all the manual scavenger to provide dignity of life to them. Okay, dignity. Okay, so please keep in the mind dignity of life to them. So what should be the way of forward? So there is a need of proper ownership. Okay, so nation need to accurately calculate the number of workers involved in the cleaning of toxic mud. Then they should be empowering local authorities. So with the Swachh Bharat mission identify as a priority area by 15th Financial Commission, and the available funds for smart cities and urban development provide a strong case to deal with the problem of manual seizures. And friends, social, okay, sensitization. So to deal with social punishment after hand-to-hand extinction, it is necessary to first acknowledge and understand why, okay, and why hand breaking continues to be included in the classification system. And there's a need for strict law. So if the law creates a legal obligation to provide sanitation services to organ of state, it will create a situation where the rights of these workers will not be suspended. Okay, please keep in the mind. So we have talked about, okay, manual scavenging in India. So do you have any doubt, or is it clear? Please tell me. Any doubt? Clear? Okay, Daisy. Now, friends, I'm going to discuss river water pollution. So this is related to environment. Okay. So what is the context? So the NGT, that means the National Green Tribunal, has directed the Punjab and Rajasthan government to submit quarterly compliance reports to the Union Ministry of Jal Shakti, that means the water resources, about the remedial action being taken to curb the inflow of effluent, okay, discharge into the Satluj and Beas. So what is the background? So the water in Indira Gandhi Canal, okay, the water in Indira Gandhi Canal has apparently turned black, okay, black due to the presence of pollutants in it. Okay, so please keep in the mind. So that means ki Indira Gandhi Canal water has apparently turned black due to the presence of pollutants in it. And the canal is a source of drinking and irrigation in north and western Rajasthan. Source of the Rajasthan. Okay, basically north and western Rajasthan. And the pollution has caused several health complications among people, such as skin disease, okay, then gastric problems, then indigestion and loss of eyesight problems. And one of the reason for the pollution is Buddha Nala. Okay, Buddha Nala. And Buddha Nala is a tributary of Satluj, and traces of chromium and arsenic, okay, can be found in the Satluj after the confluence of Buddha Nala. Okay, confluence of Buddha Nala. Okay, so what is the analysis portion of this topic? So first of all, friends, let's discuss importance of river in India. Okay, what is the importance of river in India? Can you tell me what is the importance of river in India? Anyone?
So for agriculture, irrigation.
Yes, very good. Friends, please try to participate. What is the importance of okay, yeah, good.
Sir, many industry use river as to dispose their waste materials, and also some industry use
Yes.
them as the raw material or meet the necessity. And sir, our agriculture is mainly
Yes, very
dependent
good.
on rivers,
Okay, very good.
and in some big
Okay, friends. So
and in
let's
some big
discuss.
cities we use river.
Okay, good. Got it. So what is the importance of rivers in India? So according to the World Bank, okay, report title Issues and Priorities for Agriculture, India has about 195 million hectares of land under cultivation. 195 million, okay, hectare of land under cultivation. And of this, about 63%, nearly 125 million hectare, okay, 125 million hectare of land, okay, is rain fed. Please keep in the mind, rain fed, okay. And while remaining 37% or 70 million hectares of the agricultural land depends on irrigation. So basically 30% lands, okay, depends on irrigation. And generally, rivers around agriculture zones provide much needed water for irrigation. So basically, what is the importance of rivers in India? For irrigation or agriculture. And several wildlife sanctuaries of India are located on the banks of rivers and their backwaters. So it is also important for wildlife sanctuaries. Okay, it is also important for wildlife sanctuaries. Okay. And friends, these national parks are home to several endangered species that feature on the red list of International Union for Conservation Nature. Hence, rivers in India are critical to their survival. And further, river of India also provide livelihoods to millions of people, including fishermen, sand draggers, okay, and various other professions. So basically, it is also important for employment. Okay, important for employment. And friends, what is the causes of pollution? So everyone, okay, knows about what is the causes of pollution. So let's discuss one by one. What is the causes of pollution? So first, oil and natural gas exploration. So while gas blocks firms, okay, please keep in the mind, blocks firms claim to take all the necessary steps to prevent pollution, and it is but natural that their methods are not 100% efficient. This is very important. Okay, so we have discussed. Then friends, chemical and okay, you can say effluents, chemical and effluents along the river bed is polluting the water with chemicals and other industrial, okay, effluents. And while large corporations adopt advanced techniques to treat effluents, smaller firms often have no such consideration and violate environment safety standards. Okay, violate environment safety standards. Then garbage dumping. Okay, garbage dumping. So the high pollution, or also you can say high population density around the river banks and the reckless dumping of non-biodegradable waste, especially plastic, is further adding to waste, or also you can say further adding to water pollution. Further adding to water pollution. And despite warning, okay, and strict fines imposed by local administration on those found dumping garbage into rivers and their estuaries, and this uncivilized practice continues unabated. Okay, unabated. Then friends, washing and sewage. Okay, washing and sewage is also a cause. Okay, so laundering, also you can say ki laundering clothes on river bank is common, okay, sight in India. And modern detergents are made of chemicals that contaminate river waters. Defecting around river bank is yet another horrible practice in a rural parts of the country, and that contributes to riots in India. Then cremation and last rites. Okay, so cremation grounds in rural India are located on the bank like Varanasi. Okay, maybe you have read about the news. Okay, in the you can say Ganga river system. So you'll have to keep in the mind during COVID. Okay, you'll get various news. Also, you can friends, you can read or you can get various news. Okay, for death body in the Ganga body in Ganga river during COVID. Okay, second wave. Okay. And friends, cremation grounds in rural India are located on the banks of river like Varanasi. And unfortunately, lots of Indian families that cannot afford cremation consign mortal remains of loved ones to rivers. And these human, okay, cadavers cause severe water pollution, and sand dredging. Okay, sand dredging. What is this? So high quality sand from river beds, okay, is needed for India's booming construction industry, and this has led to rising pollution in Indian rivers. And dredging operator usually unlicensed, okay, once deploy kerosene and diesel fueled cheap watercraft manned by cheap labor for sand dredging. Okay, for sand dredging. So what will be the possible consequences of river water pollution? What will be the consequences? Can you tell me? What will be the consequences? What will be the possible consequences? Okay, for also you can say ki of river water pollution. What will be the possible consequences of water river pollution? Can you tell me? Please tell me. Anyone?
Sir, river water pollution is the main and big issue for wildlife extinction because they dependent on river water for drinking purpose. We can say that due to some river water pollution, that the city which use river water for drinking purpose, they also get many waterborne diseases.
Yes, very good. Okay, yeah, Daisy.
So the living beings in the river will also get affected by the toxicity of the water, which will enter into the food system.
Yes. Okay, very good. Anyone? Any point?
Sir, it
What
will
will be the
hamper
possible
the
consequence?
agricultural activities.
Okay, good. Devka, Prakshima, Shobhan. Okay, no problem. I'm going to tell you what will be the possible consequences, okay, of river water pollution. So first of all, it will impact on flora and fauna. It will impact flora and fauna. So please keep in the mind. So chemical effluents and sewage that pollute Indian river is causing several species of aquatic life to go extinct or move away to safer heavens. A river contamination threatens biospheres and nature conservation area, and migratory birds shun these rivers and hence they can face extinction. Then friends, loss of livelihoods. So fishermen, okay, and fish farms that once flourished on the banks of various Indian rivers are finding it increasingly difficult to find sufficient catch of edible fish. So please keep in the mind this is important. Then friends, there will be the threats related to food security. Okay, threats related to food security. So fish from polluted river is found to be high in mercury, lead, cadmium, and hence unfit for human consumption. And friends, also edible fish is contaminated with Monella, Shigella, and other harmful microbes found in fishes, and the such fish is unfit for human consumption. Then friends, it will impact or affect the drinking water. So according to Niti Aayog report, hoping you can say 2 lakh people lose their lives every year due to various problems caused by consuming contaminated water. And the health hazards associated with infected water range from cancer to gastrointestinal intestinal disorder that occur due to deadly microbes that are creeping into the rivers. Then it will impact the agriculture. So while agriculture is impacted adversely by rising pollution of rivers, it is also one of the reasons for contaminating waters. And polluted waters does not allow seeds to germinate and cause stunt growth, denying farmers of a bumper harvest. Then loss of export revenue. So freshwater fish varieties, including the famous hilsa, rohu, katla, prawns from Indian rivers, once had a high demand in foreign countries, especially in the Middle East. And sadly, river water pollution has caused these varieties of prized fish to get contaminated with disease-causing microbes and chemicals. And consequently, several countries have banned imports of freshwater fish from India, including farmed varieties. So please keep in the mind. Then friends, measures to control water pollution. What should be the measures to control water pollution? So first, reducing the effluent concentration of waste input by first water treatment, treatment. Then second, industrial in plant process control, that means industrial control. Industrial control. Then eliminating effluent constituents by pre-treatment prior to discharge to sewer system or by different product manufacturing for an industry. Pre-treatment, that means the third is pre-treatment. Then friends, reducing the upstream concentration by upstream point and non-point source control. So please keep in the mind. And friends, reducing the effluent volume by first reduction of direct industrial discharge volumes into the municipal sewer system. So that means key reduction in direct. Please keep in the mind, reduction in direct industrial discharge. And friends, There is also reduction in infiltration into municipal sewer system. Okay, reduction in infiltration, okay. Then reduction of wastewater, also you can say reduction of waste volumes through process modification in industries. That means there is a need of modification, okay, modification. Then friends, increasing the upstream, okay, flow by low flow augmentation, release from upstream reservoir storage, or for from diversion from nearby water bodies. Okay. Then friends, water, hyacinth and other aquatic weeds are used to upgrade wastewater treatment lagoons and treat chemical wastewater. So please keep in the mind. So friends, we have talked about, okay, river water pollution. Do you have any doubt or is it clear? Please tell me. Clear?
Clear, sir.
Clear, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we have discussed related to Pegasus in previous classes. So no need to discuss Pegasus, okay, topic in this class. So now I'm going to discuss about the PLIMS topic. Okay. So first of all, we'll discuss 39th and 40th World Heritage Site of India under UNESCO. Okay. So I'm taking 5 minute breaks. Please wait. Please don't go. Yes, let's start our discussion. Yes, next topic is 39th World Heritage Site of India declared. Okay, 39th Heritage World Heritage Sites of India declared. So basically, what is the context? So Rudreshwar, okay, temple, and also known as Ramappa temple. So please keep in the mind Ramappa, Ramappa, okay, temple. It is also known as Ramappa temple and located in Telangana, and it has been inscribed on UNESCO World Heritage List, and it was the only nomination for the UNESCO World Heritage Site, okay, tagged for the year 2019, okay, tagged for the year of 2019. So please keep in the mind. So what is the brief description, okay, of Rudreshwar or Ramappa temple? Let's discuss. So it was constructed in 1213 AD. Okay, constructed in 1213 AD, and it is also known as Thousand Pillar Temple. It is also known as Thousand Pillar Temple, and it was constructed under the reign of Kakatiya Empire. Okay, by Recharla Rudra, a general of Kakatiya King Ganpati Dev, a general of Kakatiya King Ganpati Dev. We'll discuss about the Kakatiya, okay, dynasty, Kakatiya dynasty. So friends, Kakatiya dynasty is an Andhra dynasty, okay, that flourished in the 12th century, okay, that flourished in the 12th century. So basically, Kakatiya, okay, dynasty is related to Andhra Pradesh, and the Kakatiya dynasty, okay, ruled from Warangal, basically Telangana, okay, from 1083, okay, to 1323. So please keep in the mind, okay, Kakatiya dynasty related to Andhra or related to Warangal, okay, ruled from Warangal, Telangana, okay, Telangana, and duration 1083 to 1323, okay, 1223. So please keep in the mind. And they are known for the construction of a network of, okay, tanks for irrigation and drinking water, that is under restoration by the Telangana government under Mission Kakatiya, okay, Kakatiya or Kakatiya. And hundreds of Hindu temples were built under the patronage, okay, of Kakatiya kings such as Ganpati Dev, then Rudram Devi, okay, then Pratap Parudra of the Kakatiya dynasty. And Golconda Fort in Hyderabad was also constructed by Kakatiya rulers. Please keep in the mind Golconda Fort, okay. Golconda Fort. So Golconda Fort in Hyderabad also constructed by Kakatiya rulers. So basically, friends, also you can say ki Rudreshwar temple built by Kakatiya, okay, and it was constructed under the reign of Kakatiya empire by, okay, Recharla Rudra, a general of Kakatiya king Ganpati Deva. And the Ramappa, okay, temple is named after its architect Ramappa, who executed the work in temple for 40 years. For 40 years. And the presiding deity here is Ramalinga, okay, Ramalinga Swar Swami, Ramalinga Swar Swami. Please keep in the mind. And the triple Sri, okay, is dedicated to Vishnu, Shiva, and Surya. Dedicated to Vishnu, Shiva, and Surya. And the temple stands on 6 feet high star-shaped platform, okay, and the walls, pillars, and ceiling adorned with the intricate carvings, okay, attached to the unique skills of the Kakatiya sculptors, unique skill of the Kakatiyan sculptors. And the temple was called brightest star in the galaxy of medieval temples of the Deccan by European travelers. Okay, so please keep in the mind. And friends, the building features are decorated beams and pillars of carved granite and, okay, dolerite with a distinctive pyramidal biman, And walls are made of lightweight porous bricks, so-called floating bricks, which reduce the weight of the roof structure. And the temple's sculpture are of high artistic quality, which illustrates regional dance customs and Kakatian culture. And it is located at the foothills of the forested area, okay, amidst agriculture fields, close to the source of Ramappa, okay, Chirubu, a Kakatiya built water reservoir. So please keep in the mind. So we have discussed about the 39th World Heritage Site of India. Okay, so this is important points we have discussed. Now, let's discuss the next news. Next news is also related to World Heritage Sites. Okay, related to World Heritage Site. So the Dholavira, the 40th UNESCO World Heritage Site of India. Okay, 40th UNESCO World Heritage Site of India, Dholavira. So Dholavira, the 40th UNESCO World Heritage Site of India. So please keep in the mind what is the context. So the Dholavira, okay, the archaeological site of Harappa era city, we have, okay, discussing art and culture classes and also in ancient Indian, okay, history. So the Dholavira, it is the archaeological site of Harappa era. Okay, city has received the UNESCO World Heritage Site tag. And Dholavira become the fourth site from the Gujarat. Okay, fourth site from the Gujarat, fourth site. Okay, from Gujarat, please keep in the mind, fourth site from the Gujarat, and 40th site. Okay, and 40th site from India, 40th site from India to make the list. And it is the first site of Indus Valley, okay, civilization in India to get recognition. It is the first site, so it is very, very important for your upcoming examination. So please keep in the mind, this is very, very important. Okay, so you will have to keep in the mind, this is the, you can say, key most important topics for UPSC or also for state services. So please keep in the mind. Okay, so you'll have to keep in the mind, this is very, very important. Now friends, let's discuss what is the important facts about Dholavira. What is the important facts, okay, about Dholavira? So the Indus Valley civilization is located on hillock near the present day Dholavira village in Kutch district. Okay, we have discussed. And Dholavira is located on Khadir Island, and the site was discovered in 1986 by archaeologist Jagpat Joshi and was excavated between 1990s and 2005 under the supervision of archaeologist Ravindra Singh Bist, okay, RS Bist. And after Mohenjo-daro, okay, then there were Ganveriwala and Harappa in Pakistan and Rakigiri in Haryana of India. Dholavira is the fifth largest metropolis of Indus Valley civilization. And the ancient city was commercial and manufacturing hub for about 1,500 years. 1,500 years. Okay, so this is very, very important. I have told you. Okay, please keep in the mind. Now, friends, then what are the distinct features of this ancient site means Dholavira? So the Dholavira site has a fortified citadel, okay, a middle town and lower town. And the walls of the Dholavira are made of sandstone or limestone instead of mud bricks like in many other Harappan sites. And the Dholavira has also a cascading series of water reservoirs, outer fortification, two multi-purpose grounds, one for festivities, and okay, another used as marketplace. And it also had 9 gates with unique design and funerary, okay, architecture, which features tumulus hemispherical structure like Buddhist stup, okay, like Buddhist stup. Unlike the graves at the Indus Valley civilization sites, no mortal remains of humans are discovered at Dholavira. And memorials that contain no bones or ashes but contain offerings of precious stone. Okay, and add a new dimension. And people in Dholavira knew metallurgy. So please keep in the mind. And the traders of Dholavira used to source copper ore from Rajasthan, Oman, and UAE and export finished products. And the beads specific to the Harappan workmanship have also been found in the royal graves of Mesopotamia that indicates Dholavira used to trade with Mesopotamian. I have discussed in the ancient classes, ancient Indian history classes. So please keep in the mind. So we have discussed, so what is the other Harappan sites in Gujarat? Let's discuss the other, Harappan sites in Gujarat. Other Harappan sites in Gujarat. So first, Lothal. Lothal was the biggest, port city. So please keep in the mind. Lothal in Saragwala village on the banks of Sabarmati. Then Rangpur. Rangpur on the bank of Bhadar river in Surendranagar district. Then Rojdi, ROJDI, Rojdi in Rajkot, Rojdi in Rajkot district. Then Prabhas, then Prabhas near Beraval in Gir Somnath district. Then Lakha Babal, Lakha Babal, Lakha Babal in Jamnagar, Then friends, Desalpar, Desalpar. Desalpar in Bhuj Taluka of Kutch. So these are the Harappan sites in Gujarat. Do you know about the Indus Valley civilization? Anyone? Do you know anything about an Indus Valley civilization? Anyone? Do you have any idea? If you have, please tell me. Any information related to Indus Valley civilization? Do you have any information? Do you know anything about Indus Valley civilization? Anyone?
So it was the first major civilization of South Asia.
Okay, very good. Next. No problem, friends. I'm going to tell you, about the basic facts related to Indus Valley civilization. So the Indus Valley civilization was a Bronze Age. Please keep in the mind. It is related to Bronze Age. And Indus Valley civilization in the northwestern region of South Asia. And it lasted from 3300 BC. 300 BCE. 3300 BCE to 1300 BCE. Basically, but according to NCERT, it is related to 2500 BCE. To 1750 BC, according to carbon dating. And friends, it's mature from 2600 BCE to 1900 BCE, and together with ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, it was one of three early civilizations of the Near East and South Asia. And its sites spanning an area stretching from northeast Afghanistan through much of Pakistan and into western and northwestern India, and it flourished in the basin of the Indus River, and it is also known as Harappan civilization, because Harappa was the first site which was excavated by Dayaram Sahini. So please keep in the mind. So these are the basic facts related to Indus Valley civilization. Now friends, we'll have to discuss the next topic, and the next topic is related to juvenile. So Parliament passes Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Amendment Bill 2021. It is related to polity and governance. So the Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Amendments Bill 2021 has been passed by the both House of Parliament. So what is the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection Children Act 2015? Let's discuss. So the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act 2015 address the children in conflict with law and children in need of care and protection. Okay, children in need of care and protection. And a juvenile is defined as a person less than 18 years of age. 18 years of age. And the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection Act 2015 states that adoption of a child is final on the issuance of an adoption order by the civil code. And under the 2015 Act, offences are categorized as heinous offences with a minimum punishment of 7 years of imprisonment, serious offences 3 to 7 years of imprisonment, petty offences below 3 years of imprisonment. Okay, below 3 years of imprisonment. And friends, the act provides that there will be no appeal for any order made by Child Welfare Committee concluding that a person is not a child in need of the care and protection. And the act provides for the constitution of one or more child welfare commission for each district to deal with the children in need of care and the protection. And it provides certain criteria for the appointment of the CWC, Child Welfare Commission. Okay. An offense under the act which is punishable between 3 to 7 years will be cognizable and non-bailable So what are the key amendments of the act, friends? Let's discuss. So the amendments authorize the district magistrate, including additional district magistrate, to issue adoption order under section 61 of the Juvenile Justice Act. Juvenile Justice Act. So please keep in the mind section 61 of this act. Section 61 of this act. And its act, also you can say section 61, authorize the district magistrate, including additional district magistrate, to issue adoption orders under section 61 of the Juvenile Justice Act. And it is done to ensure speedy disposal of cases and to enhance accountability. And the district magistrate have also been empowered further, to ensure implementation of the act, And under the amendment, eligibility parameters for the appointment of child redefined. And the criteria, for the disqualification of Child Welfare Commission members has also been introduced. And some of the offences do not strictly fall under any of the categories. And it has been decided that the offences where the maximum sentence is more than 7 years imprisonment, but not minimum sentences have been prescribed, or a minimum sentence of fewer than and shall be treated as offences with this act or within this act. So what is the India's international commitments for child right protection? Let's discuss the India's international commitments for child protection. So India has signed followed convention, and as a signatory, India is required to undertake all the appropriate measures to ensure the rights of the children, but juvenile justice, care and protection, and adoption are preserved. And so what is this? So first is United Nations Convention on the Right of the Child. United Nations Convention. United Nations Convention. United Nations Convention. Hague Convention. Hague Convention. Sorry, H-A-G-U-E. Hague Convention on Protection of Children and Cooperation in respect of Inter-Country Adoption 1993, and other related international instruments. So please keep in the mind, we have discussed about the Parliament passes Juvenile Justice Care and Protection Amendment Bill. Protection Amendment Bill. Now we'll have to discuss, okay, next topic, and the next topic is related to project bold. We have discussed maybe in previous classes, okay, project bold. What is this project bold? Let's discuss. We have discussed key amendments. Yes, project bold in Jaisalmer to increase the green cover, related to environment. So what is the context? To develop green cover in the Indian deserts of Rajasthan, Khadi and Village Industries Commission, KVIC, okay, KVIC, Khadi and Village Industries Commission, and the Border Security Force planted 1,000 bamboo, okay, saplings and village in Jaisalmer as a part of Khadi Village, okay, Industries Commission project Bold. Bold means bamboo oasis on lands in drought, okay, bamboo. Please keep in the mind, okay, bamboo oasis on lands in drought. Okay, so bold stands for, please keep in the mind, bold, okay, it stands for bamboo oasis on lands in drought. So what is this? So let's discuss about okay, the project bold. So the project is the first of its kinds, okay, exercise in India, launched from the tribal village, okay, Nisla Mandwa in Udaipur, Rajasthan. And under the project, a special bamboo species such as Bambusa tulda, okay, and Bambusa polymorpha, and especially brought from Assam, okay, have been planted over the vacant arid Gram Panchayat land. And Khadi and Village Industries Commission has created a world record of planting the highest number of bamboo saplings on a single day at one location. And Project Bold seeks to create bamboo-based green patches in arid and semi-arid and land zones. And friends, you'll have to keep in the mind, it is aligned with the efforts for reducing land degradation and prevent desertification in the country. And the initiative has been launched as part of Khadi's Village and Industries Commission Khadi Bamboo Festival to celebrate 75 years of independence, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. So why bamboo has chosen? So bamboo grow very fast. In about 3 years, they could be harvested. And bamboos are also known for conserving water and reducing evaporation of water from the land surface, which is an important feature in arid and drought, okay, prone region. So what is the significance of the project? So it will help in reducing the land degradation percentage of the country. It will support sustainable development and food security. And project would support, okay, self-employment in the region. And the project will benefit a large number of women and unemployed youths in the region by connecting them to skill development programs. Then what is Khadi and Village Industries Commission? So it is a statutory body. Okay, do you know what is KVIC? It is a statutory body. Okay, statutory body formed in April 1957. And it was created under the Act of Parliament, Khadi and Village Industries Commission Act 1956, and created in 1957. And it is an apex organization under the Ministry of MSME, okay, apex organization under MSME. And it aims to plan, promote, facilitate, organize, and assist in the establishment, okay, and development of Khadi and village industries in the rural areas. Okay, so we have discussed about this topic. So friends, will have to cover 3 to 4 topics. Okay, we'll cover in upcoming classes, or I will take extra classes. So this is